We just got a heads up from the chat that our microphone was not working, so thankfully that is all sorted out now. Just giving a quick rundown of the field, Dalton Williamson said he was for sure not going to be able to make this race, but he wanted to show up for practice and qualifying to see how he stood with the other drivers, and he managed to pull off the pole in his first ever start here with the league, but he was not able to hold on to it. And Brian Sabelski getting really loose there, making a little bit of contact with that number 93 of Jason Gardner, now falling back past Alan Godfrey. Definitely a rough start for the driver of that number 85, back several positions already. There are cars all around the track here tonight. 3 laps in the books. But as I was saying during our opening, that apparently the microphone was having some technical... Oh, contact! Garrett Streets is around, and that's going to pick up Jason Gardner. And I believe also Alan Godfrey might have been involved in that. A very hard hit coming out very early into this race. Definitely trouble for Garrett Streets. And it looks like Jason Gardner was also involved. Jason Gardner already down on pit lane. Definitely a very hard impact. Well, let's see if we can't take a look back and figure out what happened there to the 15 of Garrett Streets heading down into turn number 3. Side by side, and just the tiniest little touch of contact is going to send him around in a massive impact for that number 93 of Jason Gardner. It does look like Alan Godfrey also involved. Alan, one of the rookies here tonight in the ASRC Oval Series. We do have a couple of them out here. Alan Godfrey as well as Austin Godfrey, both rookie drivers making their first starts here tonight. And along with that, the number 38 of Brandon Feeney also making his first ever start with ASRC in that number 38 Liqui entry. Brandon Feeney, also our first international driver to make an appearance this season. Brandon Feeney hailing out of Canada in that number 38. You can see the number 38 with the Canadian flag overlaid over it, and you can see in his driver photo here that 38 is actually the 38 he runs on his car in the real world side of things. So exciting to see Brandon Feeney out here, exciting to see both Austin and Alan Godfrey making their first ever starts as well, though definitely a very rough start for Alan in that number 92 machine on the side of his car, but won on the timing and scoring. Along with that, Connor Daugherty was not able to make the grid here tonight, but this was his first appearance in the ASRC Oval Series, and along with Dalton Williamson as well. But Williamson explicitly stated he would not be attending this race. He just wanted to see where he could do in qualifying here tonight, and he managed to pick up the pole. Gotta say, not very often you hear that happening, a driver showing up to a race, taking the pole, and then packing it up and heading home. But lights are off on the iRacing.com pace car. A couple of drivers have come down and taken a fuel stop very early in this race, because fuel 100% for certain is required this race. But that is going to shake things up with our starting cars being Alan Godfrey, Nico Morelli, and Brandon Feeney. Going to be a single file restart here as the caution came out so early after the initial start. iRacing.com pace car is off. Let's see what these drivers are able to do. Austin Godfrey off to a very solid start. Everyone being all single filed out from the single file restart, and it looks like Travis Sukup already looking to try and make a pass on Feeney. Feeney going down on the low side just a little bit. Sukup trying to make that outside line work, and side by side into turn 3, it does look like it is going to work out for him for the most part. Coming down onto the front stretch, Feeney still is up 6 positions from where he qualified after that big wreck and then the cycling of the pits, but he did set a somewhat slower lap that time by with a 32.24. He was actually the only driver that time by to set a lap time above 32 seconds. Everyone else was in the 31 second range, so looks like might be a little bit of trouble under the engine of that 38 machine. A little bit further back, side by side for Brian Spelski and Tyler McRae. And right behind them also Garrett Streets, 3 drivers that have picked up wins this season and are all vying for the championship. Coming into this race, actually, Brian Sabelski is our championship leader, followed just behind by Garrett Streets, and then back in the 4th position in the standings is Tyler McRae. So for these 3 drivers, just about everything is on the line. And Sabelski is going to make the pass work, and now side by side coming down into turn 1 is going to be Streets and McRae. McRae dropping back a little bit. Streets going to get that pass done pretty well. We are getting communication from Mr. Jason Gardner in that number 93 down on pit lane that his engine is expired, and that is probably going to be the end of the race for that number 93 machine. A little bit further up in the front, Brandon Feeney now starting to get a bit of pressure from behind by that number 85 NTO entry. NTO, of course, as we always like to poke fun at, being a parody of NWO, and Brian Zabelski has already parked that NTO entry many positions higher than the real-world NWO car ever managed to finish. Of course, the NTO being a parody because his Twitch channel is twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger, and he's probably live right now streaming in that number 85 car. So if you want to check out the perspective of one of these drivers here in this race, be sure to go take a look at twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger. Along with that, he also does a bit of Minecraft streaming, so if any of that interests you, definitely be sure to go check him out. Currently looking at the closest cars on the speedway currently between Sabelski and Feeney, about, call it maybe 0.6 of a second between these 2 cars. Phoenix Raceway is a track that is very large compared to the kinds of tracks that these cars normally go to. This could be almost considered a super speedway style race for the drivers of these cars. Drafting is going to play a little bit of an effect. There is enough straight line speed for that to happen. And like I said earlier, fuel is 100% mandatory. There is no way for these cars to be able to stretch their fuel long enough to get to the end of this race. So some of these drivers have come down onto pit lane already. Whether or not they've taken enough fuel to actually make it to the end, or if they've just done a little bit of a splash and dash, remains to be seen. But fuel strategy definitely playing out and is putting some of these drivers in varying positions, like Mr. Morelli here in that number 14 machine, up 6 spots from where he qualified because of his pit strategy. That said, he is getting a bit of pressure from behind by Travis Sukup. Sukup in that 45 machine going to send it really down low into the corner and make up a pretty decent amount of ground on Morelli. Gotta be careful there because there is a bit of a bump right there where the pit entry begins, and that has been known to catch off guard a couple of drivers. But everyone seems to be negotiating it fairly well tonight. A little bit further behind, Garrett Streets starting to put the pressure on Brandon Feeney as well. Streets coming a little bit higher up on the track than Feeney is. Feeney sending it down almost to the apron in that number 38 Liqui Moly entry. And Streets not going to get the run off the corner, but he is very slowly but surely closing the gap and coming down into turn 1 here. He's almost got it down to less than 1/10 of a second. He's going to try and make the pass happen. Heading down the backstretch here, side by side. Streets a little bit loose through that dog leg, but he does have it sorted out. You can see arrow damage on the back of that 15, but regardless of the fact, it does not look like it is holding him back at all, and he is going to make the pass happen on the 38 of Brandon Feeney. Bit further up in the front, that 45 of Travis Sukup still putting a whole lot of pressure on Nico Morelli, And just behind him as well, the number 85 of Brian Sabelski. Both these drivers vying to try and wrestle that second place spot from Morelli. Both Sabelski and Sukup have pitted for fuel this race. Morelli and Godfrey up in the lead both have not. So something to keep in mind is the varying fuel strategy between these two drivers and seeing how that pays off for them in the long run. After all, we are only 18 laps into this 101 lap event. Brian Sabelski's starting to look down to the inside in that number 85 machine. Nico Morelli holding it up high, and it looks like Sabelski is going to be scored as the leader as he comes down the front stretch and crosses the line there. Leader of this battle anyway, but the 14 going to send it in a bit hot into the outside line, and he did nearly make some room back on Sabelski, but he did have to end up fall back again. So Sabelski now officially being scored as P2, Travis Sukup just behind, looking to see if he can't try and get around the 14 as well and knock Morelli out of the podium position. 20 laps now down in the books, 80 laps to go. Still plenty of time for these drivers to start making moves on each other and potentially start making mistakes, with this being 101 miles of race compared to the roughly 30 to 40 miles some of our other races are at those shorter tracks. Tire wear is definitely going to be a much bigger deal here, simply by virtue of the race being a much longer duration, even if Phoenix as a track is not too particularly demanding on your tires, but naturally being in the desert of Avondale, Arizona, it's going to be hot here one way or another, and too much heat is never a good thing for these iRacing.com branded tires. Morelli going to drop back just a little bit as he gets passed by the 45, and it looks like we have a car off track. That's Tyler McRae and Brandon Feeney. Both drivers went off the track there. No caution came out, but it looks like both drivers are now way off pace. Let's see if we can't take a look back here and see what happened to Feeney. Feeney getting a bit loose, spinning it just a bit, and the 99 also going to get a bit loose. Both drivers keeping their cars pointed forward, but both cars ending up in the grass from a little bit of an oopsie-daisy there. Currently looking now back in the battle for third position between Sukup and Morelli. This is still the closest battle on the speedway. These two cars not giving up whatsoever. Only 23 laps in the books, and these two are starting to drive like it's the last 23 and not the first 23. That said, Morelli is falling back just a little bit. Going to be about 0.4 of a second between the two of them. Still a long way to go though. Morelli could honestly see this as an opportunity to start doing some tire saving. Passed by two cars that knock him out of the podium position. Might as well see if you can't get those spots back later on in the race. As we cross the line here, putting us on lap number 25, we are officially a quarter of the way through this race, and Austin Godfrey in that number 11 machine having a little bit of tap against the wall there, but regardless is sailing away with the lead, currently at a 2-second lead between himself and Sabelski back in P number 2. Godfrey being a rookie driver here with ASRC, both him and his sibling of Alan Godfrey, who is unfortunately stuck down back on pit lane. But Godfrey currently does have the most laps led, and he is putting on a heck of a run with a pretty considerable lap time. So we will have to see if he manages to make these tires last for the rest of this race, because there is such a thing as being too fast, especially at these larger ovals like the Phoenix Raceway. Currently looking back at Morelli and Sukup, this is still the closest battle on the speedway by far. These are the only two cars on the track within 1 second of each other, so Morelli really trying to do everything in his power to try and figure out some sort of way around Sukup, but he's just not getting the run off the corners that he needs. You could actually see the 14 there getting a little bit loose on corner entry and a little bit loose on corner exit there as well, so looks like the 14 generally trying to wrestle a fairly loose race car. Now, I did talk to some of the drivers before this race started, and they did tell me that the default setup is going to considerably tighten up over the course of a run as the tires fade. So we will have to see if the 14 starts to have a little bit of a better run as we get further into this race, but right now he seemed to be having a little bit of difficulty. Still in the 4th position, and not bad at all. Looking a little bit further back at one of our other rookie drivers here, Brandon Vini in that 38, had a little bit of trouble earlier with Tyler McRae, both drivers spinning a little bit and ending up in the grass, but no damage on either car, and now Feeney is still up 3 positions from where he qualified. He was starting back in the 10th spot, but now he's up to 7th, so all things considered, still making an improvement in that number 38 machine. Feeney is also one of the drivers that has not pit whatsoever this race, only just 1 of 3. We will have to see what he has up his sleeve in terms of pit strategy. There is, of course, 1 extra set of tires for all of these late model drivers should they choose to use them. And to be quite honest, I would not be surprised if this is the track out of any of the ones on the schedule where they definitely do. But with only 31 laps in the books, there is still plenty of time for these drivers to decide on if or when they're going to actually do it, because we're not even at the halfway point, race fans, so you never know when a caution might come out, or really any of the somewhat chaotic things that we have seen throughout this series. You never know what is going to happen. Just in front of Feeney by about 4 seconds, a little bit on his own here, going to be that number 99 of Tyler McRae. McRae currently in 4th place in the point standings, but has 3 wins under his belt so far this season, the most wins of any driver this season, and the only driver to have actually picked up more than a single win so far. So McRae definitely having a very good season. The only reason that he's not further up the point standings is because he was not able to make some of the races earlier on in the season, but if he continues driving the way he's drove for the past couple of weeks, he could very much get up there and vie for the championship. Currently, the points as they run is Brian Sabelski in the lead with 225 points. And then just behind him in the number 15 machine is Garrett Streets in 2nd place with 203 points. Then looking behind them is Eric Gahn, who has 129 points. And then back and forth, Tyler McRae with 120. Back in 5th in the championship, going to be Jason Mong with 108, with Jason Gardner just behind him with 104. So naturally, the 2 Jasons always next to each other. They've been next to each other on track more often than not, and now they're next to each other on the points standings. Up in the front, a battle is breaking out for the race lead here between Godfrey and Zabelski. Zabelski's done an amazing job catching up to the race leader. Seems like Godfrey might be having a bit of tire troubles after all. That time by, Zabelski was 0.2 of a second faster than Godfrey, and you could actually see Godfrey getting a little bit loose into turn number 1 there, so it definitely looks like Godfrey might have done exactly what we predicted and been a little bit too hard on his tires early on into this race, because his pace has majorly fallen off and is allowing Sabelski to really put some pressure on him from behind. Sabelski looking to try and get around him, but Godfrey's going to move a little bit to defend and going to be still scored as the leader that time by, but Sabelski's still hot on his heels and gaining every single corner, so there's only so much defending Godfrey's going to be able to do before Sabelski manages to get around him one way or another. So Godfrey getting loose off the corner there again. You can see the rear end of that late model sliding around a little bit and getting a bit of a wobble off the corner. Sabelski building up draft just behind him. He's not going to try and make the move into turn 1 here. Going to back off just a little bit to try and back it up and get a run, and it looks like that run's coming right here. Sabelski trying to make the pass down on the inside. Godfrey's going to squeeze him down though. And heading down into turn number 3, Sabelski is going to make the pass, and Godfrey looks like he is going to be pulling that number 1 machine down onto pit road for what I believe is the first green flag pit stop we have seen all season. I could be mistaken on that, but I believe it is. Which is now going to move Travis Sukup back into the 2nd position, who is actually where he qualified here tonight. So Sukup back up where he started, despite that very early pit stop he made, and now he just has to look into trying and making up 2.5 seconds on Brian Sabelski. 40 laps are down in the books though, so we are nearing the halfway point, slowly but surely, so a little bit of pressure starting to build on some of these late model drivers. And it looks like Austin Godfrey is back on the track a lap down, so considering that his pit stop, well, it was only 12 seconds, so that was actually a short pit stop. It looks like Godfrey may have only taken fuel and possibly right side tires there, because 12 seconds is not that bad compared to some of the other pit stops we've seen. Garrett Streets, his pit stop on lap number 3, he spent a full 30 seconds just in his pit box and a full minute actually on pit lane, so comparatively, Godfrey's pit stop was not all that long, but still enough to move him down a lap, and unless a caution comes out, he might have a bit of trouble making that lap back up. Looking a little bit further ahead, I was just talking about him in the point standings. It's going to be that number 15 of Garrett Streets. Garrett won the race back at, I want to say, North Wilkesboro, and now looking to try and pick up his 2nd win of the season. Currently back in the 4th position, so work has to be done for him to pull it off, and looks like we have another car off track. That's going to be the one of Austin Godfrey, stopped on the racetrack, and the yellow flag is out for the number 1 car. Let's see if we can't take a look back and see what happened to Godfrey there. Godfrey, one of the rookie drivers here this season, heading down into turn number 3. Gets loose, ends up in the grass. This is very reminiscent of the spin that Feeney had earlier in this race, and then he just locks down the tires to come to a stop to not make contact with Garrett Streets, and that's all it took to bring out the caution here tonight. So I believe because Godfrey was the cause of the caution, he won't be getting the wave around, so unfortunately for him, still going to be stuck a lap down behind the rest of the leaders. And now almost everyone is coming down onto pit lane for their 2nd round of pit stops for most of these drivers, but the first pit stop for Nico Morelli. All these drivers coming down to their respective stalls, I would imagine that we will be seeing a couple of potentially 4-tire stops here, unless some of these drivers decide to bank on there being another caution. Morelli down into his pit stall, going to be taking... oh, he's going to overdrive his stall just a little bit in that number 14 car. Going to be taking right side tires, definitely. We will have to see if he takes lefts as well. And it looks like Brandon Feeney also coming down. Just right side tires for Morelli. Streets up here also getting right side tires. And going to be taking 4 tires for Garrett Streets. Just 2 tires for Sabelski. And it looks like potentially just fuel for McRae. But maybe 2 tires for McRae though. And with that pit stop cycle complete, that is going to be shaking up our race standings just a little bit. Austin Godfrey also coming down to pit lane here in that number 1 machine. He did pit under green just a little bit ago, so we will have to see what Godfrey is planning to do. This is going to be Godfrey's second pit stop of the race. And there he is down in his box. What will Godfrey do? Looks like right side tires for that number 1 machine, which is a bit surprising me. I figured he would have already taken tires already after that spin, but looks like it's going to be 2 right side tires for the driver of the number 11 machine. So we will be doing a double file restart for this one now that we've had some laps run under green. Travis Sukup, our new race leader, with Nico Morelli just behind him back in P number 2. Morelli was able to gain some positions off of his pit stop, and Sabelski gonna be bumped back a couple, so we will have to see what these drivers can do on these new tires that they've taken. Top 5 gonna be Sukup, Morelli, McRae, Sabelski, and Streets. And it looked like Brandon Feeney is actually coming back down pit lane as well. Maybe not happy with how much fuel he's taken, or maybe trying something else out with his tires in that number 38 machine, but that is going to move him back down to the 6th position. It looks like just fuel for the 38. That was only a 5-second pit stop. So we will have to see what the 38 of Brandon Feeney is going to be able to pull off here. The last car on the lead lap. So we have 7 cars on the lead lap. Make that 6 cars actually. Godfrey in the 11 is a lap down. And now looks like Brandon Feeney is caught up for this restart. So let's see what these drivers can do, race fans. The pace car is off. We're almost halfway through this race. The green flag is out. Sukup immediately going up high to block Morelli on that restart even before the line. Everyone pretty quickly single filing out except for back here between Streets and the 1 of Austin Godfrey. Godfrey looking like he has a bit of speed under that machine, and Godfrey's going to hit the wall and spin out into... Oh! That's a very bad impact for the number 15 machine. We are going to stay green because there are no cars in the field to be potentially collected in that wreck. So we are staying green here, but that could be potentially race-ending damage for Garrett Streets, who is now down on pit lane, and it looks like both of the Godfreys have officially retired from the race. So 6 cars left that still are technically up for points. We will have to see if Streets is able to recover from that damage. And Jason Gardner, being the patient man that he is still sitting in his race car down on pit lane. Despite the fact that his engine was completely destroyed, there is still a chance that we could see him get back out here if they manage to find him a replacement engine somewhere in the pit box. But as we come around the track this time by, we will officially have 50 laps done in the books. So we are officially halfway through this race, and just about everyone in the top 4 can be thrown under a little bit of a blanket here. Sabelski, they're trying to see if he can't make a pass on the inside of Tyler McRae. McRae going to drift up just a little bit, and it looks like the number 85 side by side through the dog leg was almost able to make the pass, but McRae managed to get a little bit of a run back. But now the 85 is trying to make the pass here through turn number 3, and you can see McRae got a bit loose through the corner, and Sabelski is going to execute the pass. McRae gonna see if he can't try and retaliate and take the spot back down on the inside coming into turn 1, but he just is not close enough to make that happen, so gonna back out of it a little bit. A little bit further back, Brandon Feeney in that number 38 machine, still on the lead lap. Unfortunately, it looks like he has fallen out of the draft of these cars, so might require another caution to get him back up there unless he manages to get into the draft of a lap car. We will have to see. But that's going to make it 5 cars left on the lead lap out of the 11 entrants here tonight. Phoenix Raceway been a bit of a scary one. Sukup going to be getting up into the wall and getting very loose as well. But Craig getting a very good run on him here due to that little bit of a mishap. Coming down the front stretch here, a little bit of a run by the 99, still trying to see if he can't find a way around the 45 of Sukup. He is pulling up closer behind him, but it does just not look like he's able to get the runs he's wanting off the corner. That gap slowly but surely is shrinking though, about 0.3 of a second between these two drivers, these two teammates at that. Sukup and McRae do a pretty decent bit of racing together and also practicing together, and they also share a little bit of tips with each other about the setup, so not too surprising to see these two drivers battling it out here on the racetrack, very similar in speed with one another. And now it does look like McRae going to be trying to execute the pass on Sukup. Sukup going to go up high and get a little loose, almost spinning in that number 45. He was very much sideways there, but he managed to hold on to it. Going to be bumping Sukup out of the podium position here tonight. Further up in the front though, Nico Morelli in that 14 leading laps here around the Phoenix Raceway. We have gotten opportunities to talk to Morelli in the post-race interviews a couple of times for podium finishes, but so far Morelli has not managed to pick up a win, so if he manages to pull it off, that would be incredibly huge for him, but he is going to drift up high through turn 3 and 4 there and allow Sabelski to get by him. Sabelski going to be our new race leader, but the 14's catching back up, had to back out of it there, not wanting to bump the 85 machine, but kind of dangerously close to it there, just a little bit. These two drivers setting very similar lap times, both 30.2s roughly between both of them. Brian Zabelski was a little bit faster that time by though, and as we come across the stripe, it looks like Sabelski will again be a bit faster than Morelli there. Morelli actually getting loose off the corner and losing a pretty decent bit of the gap that he had maintained. That's going to allow McRae to start catching up to him as well, but there's still a second of difference between these two late model stock cars just by virtue of how big this track is. Travis Sukup also falling back a bit from McRae. Sukup now back about 1.25 seconds behind his teammate of McRae, and if he keeps falling back, Feeney will be in the question here too. Garrett Streets and Jason Gardner both still down on pit lane trying to do whatever they can to get their race cars repaired. There is no damaged vehicle policy here on iRacing, so drivers have the full duration of the race to try and repair their cars after an incident, whereas in actual NASCAR racing, you have, I want to say, 6 minutes after pulling your car into pit lane from a wreck to get it back out on the racetrack and up to speed, or else you're out. So still a little glimmer of hope for Gardner and Streets. Streets only is about 10 laps down, so Streets could still come back out onto the track and potentially make some spots back if he got really lucky with cautions. Gardner, on the other hand, very far down in this race, but if he manages to get out in the next couple of laps, he should still be able to pass the two Godfreys and get back up into that 7th position. 61 laps in the books though, so we will just have to see how the rest of this race plays out for those two drivers. A little bit further back in the back, Sukup and McRae are battling it out yet again, and Sukup actually got a pretty good run down the front stretch there, and he's going to pass McRae back for that third position, but McRae not out of it yet. McRae getting a little bit into the draft in that number 99 machine, and probably going to be looking to try and make that spot back on his teammate. Scratch that, McRae is going to be coming down onto pit lane yet again in that number 99. It looks like he will be the only taker this time by. We will have to see what McRae tries to do with this strategy here, because I believe McRae has already taken tires. Things are a little bit spread out on the speedway here, so we can take a look and see if we can't see what McRae has in mind. Pulling down into his pit stop here, and it looks like going to be at least 2 tires for the number 99 of Tyler McRae, making his third pit stop of the race. 4 tires actually going to be the call by Tyler McRae. 4 tires on lap number 64. This is a fairly long pit stop, 51 seconds by the driver of that number 99 machine, and that is going to put him a lap down. So we will have to see if a caution comes out to give him the lucky dog and get back up on the lead lap, but otherwise that's going to make 4 cars left in this race that are on the lead lap, and there's a pretty considerable amount of difference between all of them. 2 seconds between Sabelski and Morelli, 2 seconds between Morelli and Sukup, and 4 seconds between Sukup and Feeney. So a whole lot of gap around the speedway for these 4 late model stock cars. 66 laps now in the books though, so 2/3 of the way through this race, so clock is ticking just a little bit for these drivers to work things out the way they want them. And honestly, you never know what might happen. We've seen plenty of races where literally the last possible thing that I could think of to happen happens. Still always call back to Five Flag Speedway last season, where the race leader, after leading just about every lap of the race, self-spun with about 3 to go, bringing out the caution and putting us into NASCAR overtime. So you never know what's going to happen until it happens, and you really can't write off how a race is going to finish until it's already done. So Tyler McRae is back out on the track in that number 99 machine, but he is being scored as a lap down after he had a 23.53 second long pit stop for those 4 tires. Speaking of pit stops though, Brandon Feeney going to be coming down as well for his 3rd pit stop of the race. Actually, no, make that his 2nd pit stop of the race for Brandon Feeney. We will have to see what that Canadian driver is able to pull off here, and just what he has up his sleeve for his pit stop. We will have to see what he is deciding to do on his tire strategy. Going to be putting on right sides. Will we also be seeing left sides on that late model? Will we see someone else gambling on a 4 tire stop? And it looks like yes, we will. 4 tires for Brandon Feeney as well. Ryan Sabelski is still up in the front as your race leader, crossing the line to have officially completed 69 laps, which is pretty nice. And now 30 laps left to go. 3 cars left on the lead lap. We will have to see if Sabelski, Morelli, and Sukup decide to come down pit lane another time. Sabelski and Sukup have both pitted twice, with Morelli having only pitted once. And then of course McRae and Feeney both have pitted 3 times, so it looks like a 3-stop strategy is the general consensus on what these drivers need to be doing. So we will have to see, will Sabelski and Sukup make it a 3-stop as well, or if they have what it takes to try and make it a 2-stop, or even if Morelli somehow has what it takes to make this a two-stop race, because again, Morelli has only pit once back on lap 44, so not even at the halfway point. Lots of what-ifs still need to be decided, even if these drivers are pretty far apart on track position. There's still a whole lot of potential for things to get shaken up depending on how these drivers play out their pit stops. Of course, back in the second place, going to be that number 14 of Nico Morelli in the Justin Wilson Memorial entry. Justin Wilson was a driver in both the Formula Racing bracket as well as a little bit of IndyCar, who unfortunately passed away in an accident back in, I believe, 2015. So nice to see him being memorialized on that late model stock car driven by Nico Morelli. Nico Morelli, who is our new race leader, as Brian Zabelski comes down for his pit stop as well. We will have to see just what the number 85 has in mind for what should be his final stop of the evening. He is going to overdrive his pit box just a little bit. That's going to cost him a couple of seconds in that number 85 machine. And it looks like he's still having trouble with his pit stop. It does not look like his crew did any work on that car, but I could be mistaken. He could have taken a fuel stop and we just misinterpreted it. Speaking of drivers back out on the track though, Garrett Streets back on the raceway, 23 laps down, and definitely beated and battered in that 15 machine, but still looking to settle the score here, not finish the race with a DNF, and pick up any amount of seat time that he can, because you never know when we might be coming back here next season. Of course, there is no guarantee that we will be coming back here next season, and there's actually no guarantee that we will be driving the late model stock car in Season 9 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus, because we do have the formula where a car has to be run for 2 seasons, and then it will be put up for a vote by the community of if we want to run that car again, or if we want to switch to a different car. So we will have to see what the community decides on for Season 9 of the ASRC Oval Series. Back up in the front, things are starting to heat up just a little bit for the race lead. Currently looking at that 14 of Nico Morelli, who is our race leader at the moment, but followed closely behind by Travis Sukup. Sukup definitely gaining time on the 14 of Morelli. Every single driver on this track that has not been wrecked out has pit at least 3 times, except for Sukup, who has pit twice, and Morelli himself, who has only done 1 single stop this race. With 25 laps left to go, I would be thoroughly impressed if Morelli has managed to save enough fuel to get to the end here. I would imagine that both Morelli and Sukup are going to be pitting again at some point this race. But we will just have to see. I have been proven wrong by drivers' pit strategies before, especially in the instance at, I believe, South Boston, or no, it was at Concord Speedway, when Johnny Bell managed to pick up a podium position because he was the only driver who went the entire race without pitting, because he was just able to save fuel that much, whereas everyone else had to do a pit stop. So you never know. Drivers have been able to pull off some pretty absurd, unexpected things with these late model pit stock cars and their pit strategies before. 23 laps left to go here though, and Travis Sukup slowly but surely is gaining on Nico Morelli. Last time by, he actually was 4 thousandths of a second slower than Morelli, but regardless, he was slower, which definitely going to be a bit of a relief for Morelli, who is probably looking to just try and make it to the end one way or another. If a caution flag were to come out, it would be a big boon to these 2 drivers that still need to potentially pit again, but they could just be trying to play the waiting game and see if they can't stretch it all the way to the end. But like I said, this is a 1-mile circuit, so these 2 cars still have to cross 22 more miles of racetrack without pitting. if they want to finish where they are right now. Sabelski also still on the lead lap, but he has completed a third pit stop, so Morelli should 100% be good to go for the rest of this race. So depending on how this plays out, if Morelli and Sukup have to pit again, there is a decent chance that Sabelski could actually pick up the win. That is a very big if, and I would imagine that that is exactly what the 85 is just praying for, just hoping that Morelli and Sukup have to come down pit lane one more time, because if they both do, then that's just about going to seal the deal on this race. 20 laps left to go there, and we will have to see what these drivers have going for them. Going to be 19 laps to go here, and Mr. Garrett Streets is offering to co-broadcast with us, so I'm going to kidnap him up here, and we're going to hear what he has to say. Alright, Garrett, I can't say I've ever done a mid-race interview, but you made the mistake of saying you wanted to chat during the race. How are you doing, Mr. Streets? You're currently more than 23 laps down, having a heck of a time. Your car is a little bit on fire. How are you doing tonight?
I'd be better if I was still in the race. The old late model didn't have a very good night tonight, but we're enjoying watching the finish of this, I guess. So glad I could be here.
Yeah, it's always great to have you. I have been wanting to have guests in the booth before, but it's just never really come to fruition. Currently, Sukup is losing time on Morelli. It looks like Sukup actually is going to be coming down onto pit lane for his third pit stop of the evening. Morelli somehow still has only pit one time. I really don't think he has fuel to the end, but maybe he's pulling off some sort of just absolutely insane play that none of us could have predicted here. As he comes around the speedway here, going to be making it 16 laps to go, and he's still going strong in that number 14 machine. He has shown no signs of hesitation, no signs of uncertainty in what he's doing, so I'm assuming that Morelli has a plan here. Sukup going to be getting scored a lap down from that pit stop as well, so that's going to make only 2 cars left on the lead lap. It all comes down to if Morelli can stretch his fuel tank for these last 15 laps. If not, Sabelski has pretty much sealed the deal unless a caution comes out, in which case Sukup would be the lucky dog and get put back on the lead lap, but I can't entirely see that happening. There's just not enough cars left for that to happen, I don't think. The only thing we can really do right now, race fans, is watch with bated breath and see if Morelli has been an absolute mastermind and cooked up a pit strategy that no one else could have imagined. In your professional opinion, Mr. Streets, as someone who actually is driving this car, what do you think the chances are that Morelli actually does have the fuel to make it to the end here?
In my professional, unprofessional opinion, to me it looks fairly slim. Looks like he probably took fuel. He hasn't been to the pits since about lap 47, so he'd have to go about 54 or so laps under green in order to make it on fuel. And checking out his lap times, it doesn't look like he's probably been saving a whole lot. Although he's kind of past the threshold that I would expect for needing a pit. So I think if we're going to see him, it looks like he's coming right now, actually.
Sure enough, it does look like he is heading down onto pit lane, and needless to say, unless he can make this the world's shortest pit stop, that is going to effectively make Mr. Sabelski our race winner here tonight. And speak of the devil, Mr. Jason Gardner, after 86 laps, they managed to get a new engine put in that number 93 machine. You never know. Maybe Jason Gardner will become the lucky dog 86 times in these next 12 laps. You never know. Sure enough,
That looks.
Sabelski pitting there actually is going to put Sukup and Morelli back, or Sukup and McRae back on the lead lap. So suddenly there's actually much more of a battle for the lead here. Morelli only 1.7 seconds behind Sabelski as he came out of pit lane. So this race is not as done and put away as I thought it was. Going to be making that 11 laps to go now as we cross the line here. Sabelski is building up a gap on Morelli. Morelli still does need to get heat back in those tires because I'm pretty sure that was his first time taking tires this race. If Morelli is on the newest tires of any driver on the track, Morelli could still theoretically make this work. He does also have to contend with a lap car of Brandon Feeney just in front of him, but regardless, he is making up time on Sabelski with these 10 laps left to go. Just a little bit further back, Travis Sukup going to be scored back into that third position. He's 11 seconds behind our race leader. Make that 12 seconds now, with another 7 seconds between himself and his teammate of Tyler McRae. So unless a caution comes out, these two drivers are pretty decently cemented in finishing where they are still. Sukup gonna be scraping the wall through there, so I really shouldn't speak too soon, or else I am going to cause one of these drivers to wreck. We've had it happen plenty of times before on the broadcast. I believe, Garrett, that one of the times I actually inflicted the curse on you before.
It seems like that's the way it goes sometimes. Broadcasters say good things about athletes and race car drivers and end up jinxing them. On another note, it looks like timing and scoring on lap 92. Morelli's about a half a second behind Sabelski, half second slower than Sabelski. So right now, it looks like Zabelski just needs to run 7 or so clean laps, and he'll be taking the number 85 Nihon Tiger machine into victory lane.
Sure enough, yeah, looking at the timing and scoring, Morelli was 0.2 of a second slower than Sabelski that time by, so does not look like that stop was enough for Morelli to get the run to catch up to Sabelski. Actually, looking at his pit time was only 8 seconds, so it looks like Morelli just took fuel and that was it, which would explain why he's having the pace issues that he's having. It does not look like he actually took tires on that stop.
And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like Travis Sukup has cut down the margin between him and Morelli in half.
Just about. Sukup is slowly but surely making time back up. McRae also keeping that gap just about the same that it has been since Morelli's pit stop, so these drivers still do have a little bit of speed under their hoods. Looking at the lap time, both Sabelski and Morelli were in the 30.5 range, and then Sukup and McRae are both in the 30.6 range, so Sukup and McRae's chances of catching up without a caution are not looking too good, but you never know what can happen in these last 5 laps.
Definitely, it's never over until the checkered flag flies. We've seen that happen a few times so far this season. Most notably back at Concord, we had an exciting finish. So we'll wait and see how it goes. But Brian Zabelski's looking good, feeling good. And I'm sure that he's just looking for a clean, yellow-free rest of the way here as we come to 4 to go.
Sure enough, I'd imagine that all he really has on his mind is, boy, I sure do hope that Mr. Jason Gardner, 86 laps down in that incredibly damaged number 93, doesn't blow the second engine that they've put in that late model stock car, because I think at this rate that would be the most likely cause of a caution, is if the number 93 has a mechanical failure of some sort, because that late model has definitely seen better days.
Yeah, the right front there looks more like a modified car than a late model at this point of the race.
Sure enough, but he's still trying to get laps under his belt, and that alone is worth the applaud to both him and his crew for actually getting that car back out on the track, even if it is in a little bit more of an open-wheeled configuration. Gonna be 2 laps to go here as we head around the speedway, and Sabelski already taking down into turn 3 and 4, so that's going to be bringing out the white flag. Morelli nearly 4 seconds behind, so looks like that is going to be that for this one unless something drastic happens. White flag is officially up in the air one more time around the speedway, and it looks like Sabelski is going to be able to do it. Sure enough, heading into turn 3 and coming out of turn number 4, provided he does not hit the bump on the pit entry, which he does not. Brian Sabelski going to be your race winner and the second driver of the season to have multiple wins under his belt. Following him, going to be Nico Morelli crossing that line in P number 2. And finally, back in the 3rd position, going to be Travis Sukup rounding out your podium. Then finally, further back, crossing the line, going to be McRae in 4th. And then finally, Feeney going to be the last car on the track to come back around here tonight in that number 38 machine. Zabelski trying his best to do some burnouts here, but with how narrow that this front stretch is, it does not look like he really has enough room to make it work for him, but he's going to be trying it again, and no such luck. The thought's there, though, and that's what counts. But that said, we will be right back, race fans, with interviews with your top 3 drivers, so don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back with your post-race show. I can speak words, I swear. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to your little bit of a post-race show here tonight. 101 laps down in the books at Phoenix Raceway here tonight, and starting us off here tonight, going to be our race winner of Mr. Brian Sabelski, finally getting that second win under your belt after 9 long weeks. How are you feeling now that you've conquered the Phoenix Raceway?
Very good. This was a race I had on my schedule that I wanted to win it pretty much any cost. Well, I didn't know if I was gonna wreck somebody for it, but this is we don't have Pikes Peak, we don't have Colorado National Speedway, so this is kind of considered as my home track on iRacing. It's the one big Club West track that I'm pretty good at. It's not Vegas, so really wanted to win here and got the win and feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, it's always nice to pick up the win at your quote unquote home track. It's a little bit of a stretch, but only so much the iRacing platform can provide for us.
Right. Well, you got to pick and choose. There's like 3 tracks in Club West, and so I got to pick if I want Phoenix or Vegas. And I think Arizona feels a little more like Colorado than Nevada does. So no offense to the fine folks who live out there.
Yeah, that's definitely fair, but this is probably the longest race that we have done in the past 2 seasons. Are you feeling tired at all after managing to pull that one off?
No, actually, not really at all. If I could, I'd probably go for another race right after this one, but it is kind of late around here, so I do have to at some point actually like get home, get to bed and stuff. I have people that are trying to pull me away from my computer, so I guess I should probably at some point not be on the computer.
Yeah, I suppose we do all have real world obligations to tend to, as
We
much as
do.
it says to say sometimes.
Yep.
But who would you like to thank for getting this number 85 machine cruising
Uh,
into the victory lane?
Gosh, so many people. So shout outs to the folks at McConey Setup Shop. They are great folks. Gotta say, you know, the setup is only as good as a driver, right? But you gotta have a good setup under your feet and be able to take advantage of it. And sometimes you get something that really just meshes with how you drive the car, and it makes it really easy to run. Also, everyone hanging out here on my Twitch stream, which is on my car. So, y'all are certainly welcome. We're doing a fundraiser right now for a couple of senior pet rescues. So, that's going through this week. So, if you have a couple bucks and you want to throw a couple bucks that way, stop on over, and there's a donate link and everything. So, definitely appreciate it. I know someone who cares a lot about animals. I know that the rescues and stuff appreciate it as well. So every little bit helps, even if it's just $1 here or $1 there.
Well, it's definitely great that you're running to help support these groups. It's always good to have a cause that you're racing for, and it's
Mm-hmm.
great to pick up another win for this season running
Uh,
for them.
Certainly is. I'm very happy with that. So here's hoping for maybe we can do it again next week at New Smyrna. I don't know. I've not really got a lot of practice at that track, so it'll be tougher.
Well, I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, you too, Aiden. Thanks for broadcasting as always.
And going back to P number 2, Mr. Nico Morelli, you've done it again. You're here up talking to me. How are you feeling now that you've got 101 laps around this track under your belt?
Tired and confused. That was a long one. That was the longest one we've done all season, and I'm feeling it. I'm not used to sitting down for those kind of long stretches for oval races, so keeping your mind straight and keeping focused is kind of difficult, and confused because I did not get like any practice hopping in here tonight. I just threw on the iRacing setup and then hopped in for qualifying, so I had no expectations going in, and I feel like every time I said that this season, it's come off of the podium. So it went well, but I'm still confused.
Well, it sounds to me like that's a pretty viable strategy. Just go into every race, no thoughts, head empty, and you'll come out on the podium apparently.
Apparently so. I'm not going to complain.
Do you reckon if you could have gone back and done that race again, would have you done anything different with your fuel strategy, knowing that you would have come up about 10 laps short? Have you done it the way that you did it this time around?
There's potential to have saved some more, but it would have been pretty drastic to try and save 10 laps worth because at that point, that was a little over 2 gallons for the way that I was driving. And that would be a whole lot of saving to not lose at least a lap or a pit stop's worth. So I kind of was making the calculations while I was driving, and I was like, it's more worth it to just kind of push on and try and minimize the time loss rather than try and save a ton. I saved where I could, but I didn't try and save too much. I think in the end, for what my pace was and for what my consumption was, I pretty well maximized my result. I kind of tried to make it a little bit difficult for Brian, but I blew one turn in front of him and then blew another turn behind him, and he was off into the sunset, and that was that. So I'm happy with where I was, with how I was able to run with that car.
Yeah, P number two is certainly nothing to laugh at. That's a heck of a run on your part, and definitely a big congrats for leading all those laps that you did. It's always great seeing you up in the front.
Thanks, and thanks for broadcasting as always. You do an awesome job, Aiden.
Of course. Well, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week at the new Smyrna Speedway.
Absolutely. I will see you next week, sir.
And finally, heading back to P number 3, Mr. Travis Sukup back in that number 45 machine, putting on another heck of a run, another driver that managed to lead some laps here tonight. How are you feeling now that all is said and done, Mr. Sukup?
Tired. Didn't have much of a car. We were running the stock setup. Didn't have much time to work on it. And, Tyler was pretty sick, so we didn't get any working together at all.
Yeah, I did hear that Tyler was not feeling well, and I definitely hope that he gets well soon. But even feeling sick, he still put on a pretty good run here tonight, and so did you.
Thank you. He's probably already back in bed. Like I said, he wasn't talking at all or saying a word.
Yeah, hopefully he will be feeling better for next week at the new Smyrna Speedway. Y'all got any particular opinions or concerns about that track heading into the next week?
Haven't done much iRacing there, but it's my local track. Ran there for many years, so that's actually my home track.
Well, certainly sounds like you're going to be putting up quite a fight for some of these drivers then. Always good to have some home field advantage under your belt.
10-4. Like I said, that was just the real stuff. I've never done. I don't think I've run too many in iRacing there, so hopefully we can get it figured out.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the experience will be transferring over there. But before we head off for the evening, there anyone you'd like to thank on the side of that number 45 machine for getting you here on the podium tonight?
I'd like to thank you for the broadcasting, and I'd like to thank Tyler for getting me in this. I'm pretty green with this stuff, so he has to help me along, or I'll be out to lunch.
Well, it's always a blast having you out here, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, thank you again.
So you heard it here first, race fans. Thoughts and feelings from your top 3 finishers here tonight. Mr. Brian Sabelski, Nico Morelli, and Travis Sukup all getting it done here tonight after 101 laps at the longest track that we have been to in the past 2 seasons. But of course, before we sign it off here for the evening, let's go take a quick look at our race results. Picking up his second win of the season in the number 85 machine, going to be the 85 NTO entry of Brian Sabelski. Back behind him in the number 14 machine, going to be the Morelli Motorsports 14 of Nico Morelli. Third place going to go back to Travis Sukup in that number 45 with his teammate just behind him of Tyler McRae in the number 99 in the 4th position. Fifth place going to go back to rookie driver Mr. Brandon Feeney in the 38 for Beefy Motorsports, the driver out of Canada. Sixth place is going to go to our impromptu co-commentator, the 15 of Garrett Streets. Seventh place is going to go back to Austin Godfrey in the number 11, followed by Jason Gardner in the 93 back in 8th place. Ninth place going to go to Alan Godfrey in the number 1. And then finally rounding out the field, Don Williamson and Connor Daughtery, the 2 drivers that were not able to attend the race here tonight. So those are going to be your official race results here for the evening. Next week, we are going to be heading to the new Smyrna Speedway for the first time, I believe, in ASRC racing history. I may be mistaken on that. If we have attended to it, it was last year in the street stock, but I believe it is the first time in ASRC history that we've gone to the new Smyrna Speedway. So that should be quite an interesting race to watch. Of course, tune in same day, same time. Going to be Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern for round number 10 out of 12 of the season. So going to be closing things off here soon. So definitely want to tune in and see what these drivers have to offer in the final few embers of this season. But for now, that's all we got here for y'all from the Phoenix Raceway. Thank you all for coming out, and I hope to see you all next week. Have a good evening, race fans.